The information found in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hi, and welcome to the Women in Depth podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lourdes Viado. Join me as we explore the inner lives of women, their struggles, fears, hopes, and dreams. We'll go beneath the surface and take a deeper look at what is hidden, unknown, uncertain, and uncomfortable. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today's topic is a topic that I feel many of you will be able to resonate with, because I feel that everyone knows someone, either from a distance or knows someone close to them, who is living with some type of pain. And this pain could be from something that is just, that they're recently dealing with. It can be chronic, but the experience of physical pain is something that affects millions of people. According to the data from the 2012 National Health Interview Survey, 11.2% of American adults, which is 25.3 million people, experience some form of pain, often at severe levels every day, and have for the previous 3 months. And I think if you look at our current crisis regarding opioid addiction and abuse, you can also see how this experience of pain can lead to really unhealthy ways of coping or trying to alleviate that pain. A 2006 survey by the American Pain Foundation found that the vast majority of pain sufferers feel they have no control over their pain, that it severely impacts their well-being and ability to enjoy life. And of those surveyed, 77% reported feeling depressed. As a therapist, I see individuals who are struggling with mental health challenges because of chronic pain. And chronic pain also impacts relationships. So couples who are now experiencing a strain on their marriage, individuals who at one time felt they could cope or deal with just the regular day-to-day, and now this sense of, who am I? This powerlessness, why am I not able to affect change in this area? So this is a complex issue. There's lots of layers to it. And so I'm just glad that today I am able to have as our guest, Sarah Ann Shockley. And Sarah is the author of The Pain Companion, Everyday Wisdom for Living with and Moving Beyond Chronic Pain. Sarah has been a columnist for Pain News Network and is a regular contributor to The Mighty, a 1.5 million member online community for those living with chronic illness and pain. Hi, Sarah, and welcome.
Hi, Lourdes. Thank you so much for having me on. Delighted to be here.
Thank you for being here. I am really excited about our conversation because I want to share this with the world.
Yeah, well, I do too. It's so important, really, really important. And so many people feel alone and isolated in their pain. So it's incredibly valuable to have a forum like this to talk about it and bring these things forward.
Absolutely. And, as a therapist who sees individuals and couples who are affected by chronic pain, as someone who has loved ones who deal with this, it is a very challenging experience for everyone impacted by it.
Absolutely.
I think any way to be able to understand and cope with it, is invaluable. So I'd like to start, Sarah, with just finding out your inspiration for writing.
Well, unfortunately, I was inspired by my own pain. Fall of 2007, I contracted something called thoracic outlet syndrome. It's not well known, but it is unfortunately becoming more prevalent. It's a collapse between the clavicles, the collarbones, and the first rib. So it's a structural collapse in the body. Mine happened from computer use. I'm almost 6 feet tall, and I was working on a very small keyboard, kind of a mini laptop keyboard, which was not ergonomically correct. And I was doing this over a number of years, and the top part of my body was kind of caving in without me realizing it. It's kind of subtle. It wasn't like I was hunched way over. I was just enough that after a certain length of time, it didn't uncollapse. And of course, I wasn't aware of this at all. And came on kind of quickly, just a few little twinges here and there in my arms, and all of a sudden my back froze up. My neck was really very, very painful. I lost mobility in my neck and a lot of nerve pain throughout the body, but particularly in the arms and hands. And you lose your grip, your ability to grip. There's a lot of pain that comes with it. It's nerve pain, but it's also debilitating me as it affects the circulation, affects the ability of the nerves to respond. So you lose a lot of use of your hands and arms. So for me, my life went from being very active, very resourceful, very competent person. I was a single mom, and I was the person who held things together and got things done and had to be the breadwinner for the family, and virtually overnight went to absolute complete stop. Not only a lot of pain, but also, as I was saying, a loss of mobility in the body. So I could barely do anything. It was very painful to move even. And for me, because for some reason I got thoracic outlet syndrome in the most extreme, one of the most extreme ways you can have it. A lot of people, when they get it, there are physical therapies you can do. There's exercises. Mine, for some reason, I got the super duper version, and everything we tried to do to make it better made it worse. So I was left with kind of, what do I do with this? Like just having to live with this condition and try to sort of slog through my days in pain. The medications we tried didn't do much. And I'm not a big one for taking pharmaceuticals anyway. I don't like to put that in my body if I can help it. But they didn't help at all. And the side effects were really bad. So I was somebody who kind of had an extreme version of, how do you live with pain when nothing's going to help? And that's what inspired me to begin to, well, it took a while. First I tried living with it for a while, and there wasn't much inspiration there. But after some years of living with this and having it, the acuteness kind of lifted after a little while because I stopped doing just about everything. But then I was just going along in a lot of pain, day after day, week after week, month after month, and it turned into year after year. I finally said, I can't live like this. I have got to find a way to be differently with this pain. So we had tried different methods of trying to heal it. That didn't work, made it worse. And then I went to kind of the other end of the spectrum of, okay, I'll just live with it. I'll just put up with it. And that was better than fighting and resisting it. Certainly, it was better than that, but it wasn't healing anything. And I know a lot of people are given that advice, just put up with it, live with it, keep going, carry on, do the best you can, ignore it. That's a new thing. That's pain acceptance therapy has an element of just ignore it and pretend it isn't there. And if that works, great. But for me, it wasn't helping it get better. So I finally just got to the end of, I can't look down my life all the years ahead of me and say, I'm going to be in the same place or worse. So what I started doing was, because I didn't have a whole lot of things offered to me, in terms of medical treatments or approaches. And when you're in chronic pain, there's not a whole lot of people who really understand that unless they've been in it. You feel very, very alone in it. You're kind of living in your own world of pain. And it's not always clear to others, because they haven't experienced it, how much it affects you. It's not just that you're living with physical pain or in physical pain. That's a huge part of it, of course. But it's as if pain has moved in and taken over your whole life. So It's like you're living with a roommate you didn't ask for, who's really awful, and they're not just like sleeping on the couch. They're like in your body, you go to the bathroom, you go to shower, you cook food, you're with your child, you're driving. Pain is with you everywhere. And that is such an invasion and such a sense of having lost your life and yourself. And I know many people feel this way, that we talk about physical pain a lot from the physical aspects of it, from the physiology of it, and from the medical aspects of it, which makes sense, of course. But it's not limited to that. It begins to take over your whole sense of self. And it certainly affects the rest of your body. So you might have pain in your hip or your knee or your foot or whatever. In my case, it was centered more in my neck and my hands and arms. But it travels, it begins to invade the rest of your body because the rest of your body is trying to compensate, and you are exhausted and you usually don't sleep very well. And also it affects you. It affects your feelings about yourself. It affects your entire life. And everything you do is related to or in response to or affected by or has to include pain. And one of the things we often do, because we're a pain avoidant society, I would say, not that everybody wants to run out and get more pain, I don't mean that, but the way we deal with pain is we say it shouldn't be there, it can't be there, don't talk about it, don't express it, don't feel it, don't have it, it's wrong, it's bad. And then that makes the person who is experiencing pain, whether it's physical or emotional, and often the two do go together, and we'll talk about that, but it makes that person feel wrong and bad for having the pain. So it's a really unhealthy way of dealing with pain. You know, we're on this human journey, and we may not like it, but we are going to experience things like loss, and we are going to experience things like pain, physical, emotional pain. We're going to experience death in one form, you know, our own at some point, but people around us are going to leave. And to pretend to not feel that, or to pretend that that isn't going to happen, or to pretend that when it happens, we have to quickly stop it from happening, or run the other way, or don't look at it, or don't feel it. That's not really helping the situation, and it makes it harder for the person who's going through it. We feel like we have to hide it, for one thing. We're not given a lot of healthy ways to express it, and we're not allowed to actually just have the pain we're already in. So that makes it very difficult to heal. And I really feel like that's part of why chronic pain, whether it's emotional or physical, stays around, because we try to minimize it or put it in a little box and say, well, it only lives over here, and I'll take a pill for it, or somebody says, here, just take a pill for it. And that goes for both emotional and physical pain. And then forget about it. Carry on with life. Put it over here. And that just doesn't work very well, obviously, because we have so many people in chronic pain of all kinds.
I feel that even when you do try to put pain over here, you know, in this other room, and board up the door and put all these locks around it, it's an illusion because it's getting out anyway.
Yes, exactly.
It's interesting because so much energy and effort goes into not feeling the pain or avoiding the pain, or, you know, just putting it over here. And I think for many people, it's hard for them to understand that turning towards the pain would actually be helpful. So could you speak about that a little bit?
Yes, it's a paradox. It's very counterintuitive. And of course, as I was saying, because we've been brought up in this culture anyway to avoid pain, to not talk about it, not show it, that it's, you know, you're supposed to quickly get over it. So it's very counterintuitive to have this sense of, instead of immediately labeling the pain itself as bad and something that has to be quote unquote killed, you know, we call our medications painkillers, and put away and stopped, to instead take what I think is a more healing approach to it, and that is to turn toward it, as you were saying. And the response sometimes is like, what? Is she crazy? I'm not going to turn toward my pain. Why would I do that? I mean, of course we want pain to end. Absolutely. But paradoxically, the fastest way to get through this is to get through it, is to be in it, to be with it. I'm not saying we have to feel the utter extent of our pain and take no medications or anything like that. I'm not saying that. You know, we have to mitigate it, do what we need to do to be able to function, of course. But that can't be the answer. That's just a stopgap. You know, the way we handle it to just help us get through the day. That's just to help us kind of mitigate it and be with it. But that's not be all and end all of it. So what we want to do is learn how to imagine that pain has a positive purpose, that there's a reason pain has shown up. It's trying to show us something. And in a sense, you know, really, it's certainly a signal and it's a messenger, whether it's emotional or physical, but it's part of us trying to ask for help. It's part of us. It's, in a sense, it's the feeling of us trying to heal something. It's that part of us that says, I need help. I'm out of whack here. I'm out of balance. I need you to pay attention to me. And that may seem obvious, but the way we pay attention is not always very healing. We pay attention by trying to push it away, or by trying to silence that voice, so to speak. And I have found, and because I've had, I've been in this now for almost 11 years, so I've had some time to really play with these different ways of being with pain, that the most constructive and healing way to be with it is to actually be with it, to allow yourself to, in a sense, almost instead of confronting it like, there it is, you've met pain, and instead of trying to push it away, because that's an engagement, even though we're, being in denial or being resistant is a direct engagement with it. You're having to hold that door shut, as you were saying before, or push against it all the time, which is exhausting. Trying to deny something or push it away is exhausting. So instead, to kind of invite it to be beside you rather than something that you're fighting, and sort of sit down with pain and say, well, what are you trying to tell me? How do I need to change? What's going on here? And from a very different standpoint, from the standpoint of not fighting, but instead inviting a response almost back from pain. Okay, I'm listening now. What do I need to know? How do I need to shift? What's your purpose? What positive thing you're trying to tell me or bring me or show me? And that in itself, very simple but very profound shift, because that will begin to, the whole body relaxes. For one thing, physiologically, there's a response. Your breathing shifts, your blood starts to flow more freely. You get the sense of greater relaxation just by doing that. Just, okay, because it puts you in the driver's seat. When you're fighting pain, pain's in the driver's seat, because you're, and you're not going to win that battle. That's, very seldom do we win that one.
I love that you use the driver's seat describing when pain is taken over. And one of my favorite metaphors, it was a colleague shared this with me, is that, we have all these different parts to ourselves. And anytime one of our parts is driving the bus, and whatever part that is determines what type of journey, if we crash, if we get lost, if we get stuck. And so it's this awareness that, who's driving. And then also here's the second part, which this is actually really, really important. I should have mentioned this first, is on this bus, you can't kick anyone off the bus and you can't kill anyone.
You're stuck with it. Yeah.
And so the invitation is, so do you want to be in this confrontational, aggressive relationship with someone on your bus, or is there a way to get into a different relationship because you're all together for this journey? So
yes,
could we see what we can do to make this a little bit more comfortable? And I also love that you talked about sitting with the pain and asking the pain, why are you here? What do you need from me? And, with Jungian psychology and also with IFS, or it's called internal family systems, we look at symptoms as not as symptoms, because with symptom comes the connotation of pathological, bad. We look at them as messengers, or parts of you that are trying to get your attention for some reason, and, shifting into, what are you here to tell me? What do you need from me? What am I not seeing? And again, it is counterintuitive, but a lot of energy goes into resisting. And like you said, there's an immediate shift when you sit with it and welcome that part of you into a dialogue.
Yes. And, your whole, as I was saying, there's physiological shifts, but also your mind opens up. There's more room for new answers to come in when you allow yourself to kind of be with it, and in that way begin to have a dialogue with pain. In your reference to the bus, whatever you're fighting, whatever you're in battle with, that's who's driving the bus. So
I love that. Yeah, that's a great way. Yeah.
If you're in battle with pain, in a weird way, it's pain that's driving, or you in pain in your battle mode. But the pain's really driving. That's the quality of your journey. So, healing is a journey I found, as particularly healing chronic conditions like this. So I want to be the one driving the bus, and I will invite pain. I can't push pain off the bus, as you're saying, because there's pain shown up. So I can yell at pain, I can open the door, I can say, get out, and I can spend all this time doing that and energy, but it's not really going to do much. So invite pain to have a seat next to you, and you're driving the bus, but, okay, what do I need to know about this? How do I drive this to a healing place? What is it that you have to inform me with and offer me with, so that I can come back into the center of my own life and make some choices from that place? And then things do start to open up. You get different ideas, and some of the answers may surprise you. You were talking about the Jungian way of approaching things. I absolutely have invited pain to take a seat in my house. Like, imagine it sitting in a chair across from me. Okay, if pain was sitting there, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
how would it be dressed? It might be very surprising what pain looks like. I always say that all pain is custom designed for you. It's yours. So, it goes with your life, your body, your situation. So it's going to look whatever it looks like to you. And then invite it to have a conversation and ask it questions and just use your active imagination, and you'll be surprised. You might imagine that pain's going to say, I want to kill you and I want to take over. But it may surprise you by being much softer than that and saying, I'd really like to see you rest more. I need to have you pay attention to me with kindness. I need some kindness. I'm the part of you that's hurt. So I need some time. I need some kindness. I need you to stop trying to, mention before, muscle through. We have this culture in which we really believe in resourcefulness and independence and winning and goal setting and going and going and going. And we make our lives so full every day, and we're rushing from here to there. And at work, we have to do the best we can. And as a parent, we have to be the best parent. We have to, and even our vacations are filled with activities and things. And we have to have and we rarely just stop and relax and be with ourselves and be with our bodies and be with our emotions, whatever it is. And sometimes pain is showing up to ask us to shift that, and taking that mindset or that approach like we do with our normal life, to sort of get through things and get to the top and reach the goal, and then trying to apply that to healing. I've got my healing goals, and some people do that, and that may work for them, but I didn't find that worked for me. It was not congruent with what my body was asking for. My body was asking for, whoa, slow down. You don't like this, but slow down.
That's just so beautiful how you worded that, Sarah. And it made me think of someone in my life who dealt with chronic pain for some time because of some surgeries. Mm-hmm. And I remember that a lot of the conversation with this person was around, I can't work out the way I used to. Mm-hmm. I went to the gym and usually I could do this run for this long, and now it was only this. And again, like what you were saying, listening to what the pain wanted, which wasn't an intense workout, know, and,
right.
For this individual, over time that began to shift into this, okay, what's needed is for me to be more gentle mm-hmm. with my body. Yes. And maybe if I'm more gentle, I can work out and I can still move my body. And so when you describe this experience of what does the pain need, I need you to be more gentle. I don't want to lift heavy weights. I don't want to run 4 miles.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these things that we go through, pain can be a teacher. And it's not the teacher any of us really ever want to have, but sometimes it shows up. And if we can allow pain to teach us things, then we can learn how to be different with ourselves. So some of the things that show up with pain are our fears. Our fears of not being good enough, our fears of not getting to the other side of it, our fear of pain itself, our fear of having to feel it. And yet it's similar to grief in a lot of ways, where when somebody's grieving, we often feel like we're supposed to sort of distract them or help them to quickly get back in their life or do something else or never talk about that person that just passed or whatever. And I think we're learning that that's not really a very good way to approach grieving, that the person who is grieving needs to feel it. They need to feel that loss. It's a loss. Someone passed or they lost someone in another way, but there's the way through grief is to be in it, and it's very difficult. And yet that's the only way to move beyond it, is to be in it. And physical pain is similar to that. Again, not that we have to just stay stuck in it, but if we allow ourselves to be with it differently and to move through it and to kind of stop fighting it and start to work with it, it's very interesting. It's like an aspect of ourselves that begins to relax. It's like, oh, wow, she's paying attention to me. I don't have to scream quite so loudly. And I have found that it actually affects the levels of physical pain that I'm feeling. It affects the acuteness. Probably there's physiological reasons. I know that besides other reasons, but when we're in pain, the first thing we do is we hold our breath, we pull back, we tighten up, we clamp down on it, we contract, we try to push against it. And all of those things create more pain in the body. So they all work together. This different way of being with pain works together to help elicit different responses from ourselves. And when we learn to be with pain differently, we are at the same time learning how to be with ourselves differently. Because if you think about it, we're learning how to be with a part of ourselves that's hurting differently. So instead of trying to push it away and cut it out of our bodies and stop it, we're learning to go, wow, part of me needs my attention, and it needs a kinder, more compassionate attention than I'm giving it. And that goes with our physiology, but it also goes with our emotional self. So it has a lot to do with teaching us how to be in life and with ourselves differently than we're used to.
Sarah, I love metaphors. I use them all the time. They're really, they're just really helpful for grasping the deeper meaning of things. And one of my favorite parts of your book is when you use the metaphor of the wounded animal. Mm-hmm. So could you share that, please?
Yeah, in my process of working with pain, I looked at, well, what is pain? And how do I be with it differently? And because nothing was really working, and because I'm sort of this way anyway, I began to use different creative ways of thinking about pain and how it responds to us and how we respond to it. And realizing that the way we think about pain, the way we perceive it, is absolutely informs the way we respond to it, which then informs the way we experience it, which then, in my mind, informs the way we heal or we don't heal. So I started to begin to kind of look at pain from different angles. And I thought, wow, what does pain feel like to me? It feels like this growling beast in there that's going to snap at me. And I thought, well, okay, what if it is that? But what if it's, because it's pain, it's wounded. It's a wounded animal. So I started to think about, well, that's like a wounded animal living in the house of my body, in a sense. And so I imagined, what would that be like? Let's say you go home to your house, your physical house, and there's an animal like a lion or something in one of your rooms. And it's like, whoa, that's scary, which is the first thing pain. Whoa, scary, stop, whoa. Let's call the animal control people. Let's get rid of it. But there it is, and you can't get it out of your house for whatever reason. I started to imagine, well, what do you do if you can't call animal control or they won't come or it's, and to just begin to kind of be with pain like you would with a wounded animal. It's a little dangerous seeming, but you don't run up to it and bat it over the head with a frying pan, which is our usual response to pain. You stand in the doorway and just watch it for a while and be with it. And you might need to let it know that you're not going to attack it. It's got claws and teeth, and it is dangerous in that sense. It can get worse. But you stand there and you kind of just reassure it that you're there to help it. And you watch it for a while and you kind of get used to it. So I started using that metaphor as a way to be with my pain. And I really highly recommend trying this. I found it made a huge difference because the pain, like an animal, began to trust me. It began to kind of soften and relax a little bit. Metaphors are metaphors. Are they real? Are they not real? It doesn't matter if they work. They work really well. And something in you and something in your physiology relaxes when you start to use these methods. And like a wounded animal, you begin to look at it differently too. You see, wow, I see the fangs and the teeth, and that's scary. But I also see that it's wounded. It's not feeling so great. It itself is in pain. So wow, how can I be with that differently? How can I comfort? Can I speak soothing words to this animal rather than yell at it all the time? Can I get a little bit closer, slowly get closer to it so it trusts me? And maybe begin to notice that it's not looking so fierce anymore. It looks really kind of pathetic, So, I need to give it some love and attention and maybe clean it up a little bit. So kind of using those things and literally imagining your pain that way and literally kind of imagining yourself getting closer to it and allowing your fears to drop away and begin to see it as something that you work with and that you can heal with your intention and your compassionate attention rather than trying to just get rid of it and push it away and all the things we're taught to do that don't seem to work so well.
And so, Sarah, I want to shift gears a little bit now. And, we've talked about, pain, what it is, how to understand it, how to be with it, how to approach it. And now I want to talk a little bit about some of the, the tools that you suggest in your book and of actually interacting and coping with it. And one of the things that stood out for me was actually in the foreword of your book, which was written by Dr. Bernie Siegel.
Mm-hmm.
What really grabbed my attention is the part where he wrote that studies reveal that when you put your hand in a bucket of ice and keep it there as long as possible, you can keep it in the ice longer if loved ones are standing by your side than if you're alone. And you'd probably be able to keep it there even longer if your dog were present.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Siegel also wrote that from his experiences with a back injury, he noticed that when he was performing operations or painting, which were two activities where he lost track of time and was being loving and creative, that he was not aware of any pain.
Mm-hmm.
And then he writes, when I stopped either activity, I needed to lie down because of the pain that I was now aware of once again.
Mm-hmm.
I think doing any activity that makes you lose track of time is the healthiest state you can ever be in. So I was wondering if you could speak to that along with the practices that you write about in your book.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. I love Bernie Siegel. He's fabulous. And I would even take that one step further from what he said about being in that space of, sort of kind of timelessness. What he found was a way of, the pain was still there somewhere, but he wasn't as aware of it because he was immersed in something else. And that can be a really healing thing to do. And I would take it even a step further and say, when he spoke about coming out the other side and the pain was still there to meet him, I would also suggest finding those ways of being with and in the things that you love, whether it's and expressive things. That was his way of expressing who he is, because he's a surgeon. And so it's his way of being fully himself. So if you have things that you love to do that feel like the you of you, I would highly recommend doing them. And as much, or often they're very little ways that you can do that while you're in pain. But if you can find a way to do them even in a small amount, it's a way of being with yourself even while you're in the pain. So a lot of times we put ourselves to the side and we just focus on, I've got to get through this pain thing. And paradoxically, or, at the same time, getting through the pain thing, it needs to involve our whole being. So it's almost like a soul journey to get through to the other side of pain. So part of this that I'm getting around to saying in my long-winded way
You're fine.
is that I think it's really important to find ways to express the pain we're in. It's a little bit different than what Bernie was saying, or it goes maybe a little step further than that, and that is to, in whatever way appeals to you, whether it's writing or dancing or singing or talking to someone or being with an animal and talking to an animal or being in nature, but being with the pain that you're in, and then also finding a way to express through whatever medium it is, how it is, what it is for you. So you might be creating a painting or a drawing of your experience of pain, or you might allow pain, in a sense, to do the drawing. Okay, pain, you tell me what your experience is. And of course, the pain is part of you anyway, so that may seem strange. Well, how am I going to let pain do a painting? Well, the pain is part of you. It isn't all of you, but it's there with you. So just allowing the pain to express itself. And the painting maybe have a lot of black in it at first, but then if you keep doing that and you move along, you'll find that those expressions evolve. And that is a way of healing. It's a way of getting in touch with things. It's a way of allowing things to move rather than clamping down on them and keeping them, away, like I was talking about before. You're letting it move, and that's a healing. We talk about the mind-body healing thing a lot, where, and Dr. Siegel was a forerunner of that. But at least in our, the Western allopathic medicine, he was one of the first MDs to talk about the mind-body relationship and the relationship of emotions to healing. And we talk about that kind of almost as a catchphrase, mind, body, and holistic. But I don't know if we really understand what that means, because in practice, it means we're involving the whole self in our healing, and that the whole self is required for us to heal. And too often in our Western model of medicine, we're taught that we go to the doctor and the doctor fixes us. And too many of us are going home unfixed. And it's because the doctor really can't fix us. It's always our body. It's always us that heals ourselves. The doctor may have a treatment that will help, they have medication that will help, but it's always we always heal ourselves. So we kind of need to take back both that responsibility and that empowerment to know I'm always healing myself. And it's not just going to be necessarily limited to a physical remedy, because I am more than physical. So I'm a soul, I'm a spirit, if you want to say it that way. I'm certainly got a mental aspect to myself. I've got an emotional aspect, and all of these live in this physical body and around the same space. So in order to heal myself physically, I need to engage my emotions and my soul and my spirit and my thoughts, and vice versa. If I'm healing something emotional, I'm probably going to need to engage my body in that. So, and my mind and my emotions. So to really, I think part of what he was saying in the foreword is engaging other parts of the self in order to heal. And that's really where we're going, I think. It's hard because we're taught differently. We're taught to rely on the medical system. We're taught that there's going to be an answer. There's going to be a pill. There's going to be a way. We just got to get to the right doctor.
Yeah.
And if that doctor doesn't help, you go to the next one, the next one, the next. And people do this for years and years and years. And it's not dissing anyone. It's not dissing doctors or the people that are looking for help. But what it says to me, and especially because we're talking about, as you were saying when we first introduced this topic, 25 million Americans now are in what we consider to be chronic pain. That's a lot of pain and a lot of people who aren't getting answers. So for me, it says, wow, we need to look at the way we approach healing, period. It's not just we haven't quite found the right doctor, the right treatment, the right pill. It's the whole methodology needs to be looked at, and understanding that it's in a sense, it's asking of us a very different response that we need to be prepared to discover almost, I think each of us probably has to discover our own healing journey, and we can certainly get help from people outside of us. That's part of, what I'm trying to offer is some insights, and doctors are trying to offer help, but everyone's going to have to take what they've got and then make their own way through it. I don't think there's any way around that.
So, Sarah, one of the ways that I get to see pain play out in people's lives is in my work as a therapist. And I see individuals who are struggling with coping with life and their pain, and then also couples where pain is now impacting the relationship.
Yes.
So could you speak about how loved ones, friends, family can better support and understand the people they love who are in pain?
Yes, it's a big topic, and I'll do my best to do but it's, it really is that people who are in pain, whether it's physical or emotional, we're living in our own world of pain in a sense. And one of the most important things to understand is how it affects all of us, how pervasive it is, that we really do. We wake up with it, we go to sleep with it, we can't sleep with it. We have a lot of insomnia. And there are many other aspects to pain that we don't always talk about. We talk about the medical aspects of it, but there are fears that go along with it. A lot of us wake up with panic attacks in the night because we have to deal with the stresses that go on with that in terms of, is this treatment going to work? Is this medication going to make me worse in some level? Who's going to take care of my kids if I can't? Can I work? Can I not work? Am I going to get disability? I don't know. Is the insurance going to cover that? There's all this stuff that we're in the middle of. We're trying to heal, and we've got more stresses than ever before. So all of that's going on, and we're worried about whether we're still a good parent. We're worried about whether we're still a good partner for someone. And we're worried about losing our job if we're still able to work. We're worried about showing pain. We don't want to show it. We want to hide it. We don't want to be a burden to anyone. So we've got all these things going on. And then a lot of us don't even realize how much emotional response we're having to being in physical pain because we're so focused on the physicality of it. So we've got a lot of times we're at least partially depressed without realizing it. There's a lot of sense of sadness and loss, the loss of our lives, our normal lives. So we're dealing with a lot. And there's what's also not always readily apparent is there's a lot of shame to being in pain. We feel shamed for not being able to heal. And a lot of times people around us keep asking us, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Are you really working on this? Are you sure you want to be out of pain? Don't you, maybe you're doing this for attention. Have you thought maybe there's an emotional component to this? When we get stuff around us all the time. So we're under a huge amount of pressure to heal and to heal fast because in a loving way, people want us to come back to life. They want us to be who we used to be, and they want to be able to rely on us, or to be with us in ways that they can't right now. So there's an aspect of loving support, but it kind of puts a pressure on us to heal. But there's also an impatience there. And people around us are often also scared of pain themselves. So there's this whole universe of things that are going on at the same time. So I would say for people that are caring for people in pain, loving people in pain, being coworkers for people in pain, to, as best you can, try to understand through talking with them, ask, how has this affected your life? Rather than, have you tried to fix yourself this way? Be a little more respectful of the fact that they're probably doing everything they can already to heal. And it's not always helpful to offer another suggestion for how they can not be where they're at. In a way, these helpful suggestions are constantly saying, you're not okay where you are because you're in pain. I don't want you to be in pain. So I want you to change for me because I'm uncomfortable with your pain. So try this and try that. And sometimes people around us are annoyed that we don't try every single thing they offer, not realizing perhaps that everybody else is telling us to do things. So I'd say, to really just kind of step back and offer your loving compassion to somebody who's in pain, to realize they're going through a lot, that it's probably taking all of their resources and all of their energy just to be in pain and to get through a day and try to be remotely normal. And to understand that when they say no, they can't do something, it's not personal. A lot of times we have to say no, or we have to leave early, or we have to change our plans at the last second. It has nothing personal about it at all. It's because we're trying to take care of ourselves. And I would say rather than offering advice, even though it comes from probably a very heart-centered place, to say, I want to help this person, the most helpful thing you can do is offer to do things for them. If you want to be helpful to somebody who's in pain, offer to give them a ride so they don't have to drive. Offer to go shopping with them and carry their groceries. Offer to clean for them. These things we don't think of, but for somebody in pain, just the very minimum self-care can take all your energy. And then, I can't actually vacuum or use things that make my arms have to have weight on my arms, or pushing and pulling. So be aware of that aspect too of living in pain, and maybe offer help in a different way than you might have thought of before. And another really great way to be helpful for somebody who's in pain is to offer to just listen, to say, can I be an ear for you? How is this going for you? What does it feel like? How is this affecting you? And to have enough courage to hear that and not have to try to fix it or stop it, to just listen. And then at the end, say, thank you so much for sharing that. Wow, I had no idea. That sounds really hard. And not say, and have you tried this? Just let them be with it. It's one of the most healing things for somebody in pain. And this sounds really paradoxical, but people who are in pain, emotional or physical, need to be allowed to be in the pain they're already in first. Just let them be in it so they can sort of arrive in it. And I know it's so not in our culture to do this, but it is so much more healing to just kind of be with them, take a breath with them in the pain they're in, to see it, to recognize it. And you'll notice their whole self will relax. It's like, you didn't make me wrong for having this. And then some healing can start. But we try to jump over that step, and that's a really important step. So that's one of the most important things people can do. And for doctors as well, to do that, to allow the person to be where they're at for a moment and to really listen and to believe. A lot of people in pain feel like they're not believed for how much is, how could you be in pain that long? Yeah, you can be in severe pain for many, many, many years.
Sarah, you describe pain as a teacher. In our conversation, there's a part of your book where you also write about this. And I would love you to share, as we wrap up, what has pain taught you?
Again, it's not the teacher anybody signs up for. You
right?
Really don't want
Nobody
to have
wants
to learn
to take this class.
Yeah. But somewhere along the way, you're probably going to meet pain. To meet it and allow it to be a teacher is really amazing, because you come away with some wonderful life lessons that enrich your whole life. And those include, for one thing, of course, pain brings you right into the present moment. I mean, you can't be anywhere else when you're in pain. you're in the now. You can't go anywhere because it's demanding your attention. And while that seems horrible at the time, you learn that the only place you're going to heal is right now, not in the future. The only way you're going to get through this is right now. So you learn to be with what's right in front of you right now, which is a very spiritual lesson in life, to be with what's right here in front of you. And instead of fighting it, to look at it and see, okay, what's presenting itself to me and how do I dance with this? How do I move with it rather than fighting it? Because the fighting, of course, keeps it in place. If you get locked in this stalemate battle. So learning to be with what's here, and rather than labeling it as bad, to just say, okay, I don't really see the good in it yet. I don't really see the purpose yet, but I'm going to be open to it. I'm going to be open to that there's something here that is positive for me. And that can shift a lot. And then, of course, when you're in pain, you lose so much of what you love to do. It's very, very difficult and very sad. So one of the things you have to learn, I think, if you're going to find any well-being while you're going through this, is to appreciate and take joy and pleasure from some of the smallest things. Your child's smile, just drink that up. Really enjoy what's in front of you. And what I've learned is to be as present as I can be with my son, with whoever I'm with. When I've got any energy to be with them, I try to really be there. Not overdoing it, but just being present. And as a parent in pain, this is important to know. Your presence is more important than anything. To not feel guilty about, I can't be the perfect parent. Just your kid wants you. So I learned to just allow myself to be happier even while I was in a sort of an unhappy seeming situation. So to connect more, one of the big lessons is to not wait for pain to be over, to reconnect with your life and with yourself, because it may be here for a while and you don't want to lose your life to pain. And it seems inevitable, like, it's taking over. But instead say, no, I am still here. And the me of me is still here. And there is a part of me, it may feel like it's way deep inside there, but there's a part of me that is untouched by the pain. There's an eternal part of me, if you will. And so learning how to connect with that moment to moment and knowing that you are still here and knowing, that I am valuable and I am loved and I'm still important to the people around me. One of the things we do in pain is that we often withdraw and we isolate ourselves. So learning to reconnect was really important for me. And that helps my whole life, learning how to make connections in a more true and real way. I don't have the energy for things that are superficial anymore. So, you prioritize, you learn what's real for you, you learn what's true for you, and you stick with those and you give your energy to those things. And all of those things are what the sages have been saying for centuries are the roots of being spiritual, is to find those things. And so in a weird way, pain can be a very spiritual teacher.
Sarah, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm really so grateful to you for your time. And I'm just happy for listeners who will be able to find a way, some comfort from listening to our conversation. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I've really enjoyed being here. Very much appreciate it. And thank you to our listeners very much.
If listeners would like to get in touch with you, learn more about your work, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you or find you?
I have a website. It's very easy to remember. It's the same as the book. It's thepaincompanion.com. So you can go there and find out more about me if you wish and see what I'm up to. I write a blog, so you can subscribe to that there. That's, of course, free for anybody who wants that. And I have resources on my website. I also have a YouTube channel that goes under the same name, Pain Companion. I do little 1-minute meditations for people in pain and short videos about living with pain. And of course, I have a Facebook page that's also the Pain Companion. So just Google the Pain Companion, you'll find me. And I'm happy to hear from anyone. And if you have questions or you want to connect with me, there's a contact page on my website. So I'm always happy to hear from people.
And we'll include the show notes to all of those platforms and to your website so that people can find you that way as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Women in Depth podcast. I hope it brings you a deeper understanding of yourself and others, and that you found some insights that illuminated and inspired. You can follow Women in Depth on Facebook and YouTube, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. And finally, if you enjoy Women in Depth, please share with a friend. Again, thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.